This video is to help you have a good idea of what to expect with the MCA IIs this spring. Some key points are that the test is taken over a 2-day period, and this year they will be given on April 17th and 18th. Be sure to answer the questions that you are sure about first. If you don't know the answer to a question, skip it and go back to that question later. It's better to do the questions that you are most confident about first, so that when you go back to the harder ones, you have time and you know you've done the best you could so far. If you do or struggle on a difficult one at first and burn some time up that way, sometimes when you get to the easier ones, you might be a little bit less confident because you've been struggling on a more difficult question. So again, a good strategy is to go through and do the ones that you are most comfortable with first, so that you can make sure that you answer those questions correctly, and then go to the more difficult ones. Think positively. Some problems may seem too hard to you, but you may be able to figure out what to do if you read each question carefully, and as I mentioned before, you might be able to come back to later, and you might have developed an idea of how to handle it. If no figure is provided, you can draw one. If one is furnished, you can mark it up to help you solve the problem. You can draw on your test booklets. When you have finished each problem, reread it to make sure your answer is reasonable. And make sure that the number of the question on the answer sheet matches the number of the question on which you are working on the test booklet. So you don't want to go through all that hard work, get a correct answer, and then accidentally put it in the wrong answer blank. There are 4 segments to the mathematics test, so your teacher will tell you when to begin each segment. When you get done with a segment, you raise your hand, and the teacher will give you a sticker to close that section up. So make sure before you do so that you've answered every question and that you feel confident with the answers you've given. Because once you put a sticker on that section, you cannot open it up and go back. Again, you may write in the test booklet as scratch paper. Grid paper is provided at the back of the test booklet, and your answers must be marked in your answer book. There is a formula sheet that you can use, and I'm going to pull that up real quick. And that is this one right here. You have all your formulas present, ones that you will need, defined by the area in which the formulas are most suited. Trapezoids, area of a regular polygon, area of a circle and circumference, formulas that you should be familiar with, but again, they're there for you to have available, so you don't have to memorize them. Volume, distance, etc. Permutations and things like that are available on your calculators, and as mentioned before, you may use your calculators on this test. Okay, back to this part here. There are only 2 kinds of questions on this test, and that is multiple choice and grid response. Open-ended questions are no longer applicable to the MCA IIs. So here you have an example of a question with multiple choice options, and then you'd fill in the blank. We're going to go through a couple of those and see what they look like. Now, a grid of response looks like this. Again, we have a space in which you can represent your answer. The first column is only for your negative sign. Every other column has numbers 0 to 9. They also have decimals, so you can put a decimal wherever you want. And then these symbols here are division symbols in case you want to write a fraction. Again, you may use a calculator on all the segments. And again, when you finish a segment of the test, stop and check your answers. Then use the sticker your teacher gives you to seal it. But remember, once you seal it up, you cannot go back. So make sure that you are ready to do so. Again, here's an example of an answer key where you have a multiple choice question number 1, a grid response question number 2, and then again a multiple choice question number 3. And again, here's an example where they're all multiple choice, so read carefully what number it is. Notice these go vertically, so pay close attention to that to make sure you're lining up your questions right. So a couple of things to think about with graded response. We're not going to do the question per se, but I'm going to show you how they write the answer in it. The answer to this question is 65. And this student wrote 65 in the far right part of the graded response. This person put it in the left part of it, and then these two people put it in the middle. Again, it does not matter. All are considered correct. Just make sure the bubbles below them are filled in properly. Another example, this answer is a fraction. Now the fraction is 3/8. So they use that division bar in the first row to create and write that fraction. In this one, put the fraction in the middle. Again, all equivalent. Above, the first part, they wrote the answer as a decimal. And again, they may do so long as your fraction creates a decimal that stops. For example, 3/8 is 0.375. It stops and it fits. However, if my answer was 1/3, and I know the decimal is 0.3333 repeating, you would not be able to represent that in this graded response because it does not stop. So in the example of 1/3, it's best to write the actual fraction 1/3. And with the graded response, you can easily represent that fraction with the symbols given. All right, this is the end of this video, so I hope it gives you a little bit better idea of what to expect when you are taking the MCAs this spring.